What's going on, everyone? So James Harden is an incredible talent, right? And he's had quite the journey from OKC to Houston and being the front runner to his own team and a legit contender, but just couldn't get over the monster that is Golden State. And then he ends up going to the Brooklyn Nets. That doesn't work out. He wants to leave. He wants done. And then he ends up making his way to Philly. Really underperforms, right? The stigma of him just not showing up in the big moments, him just not showing up throughout the playoffs. He goes an important game and he just laid a goose egg, right? I mean, he was terrible. And, of course that came out. But then James Harden said, I was dealing with injuries. I'll be back. You'll see a new and improved James Harden. And James Harden, for the most part this year in Philly, has been very solid. But they started off just in a horrible state, although that wasn't really James Harden's fault, right? James Harden was actually playing pretty well. And then, you had injuries come in and you still have injuries, right? Maxi's still out. James Harden missed some time, all that stuff. So now they're looking to kind of get back on track. They're starting to win games, starting to get more comfortable, starting to get more involved, but there's still a lot of questions of, is Philly a contender? James Harden took a little extra off the top just to help Philly go get some pieces. And now there's questions that in the offseason, James Harden may end up leaving Philly, that he's looking at maybe returning to the Houston Rockets, which we'll dive into in a moment. But real quick, this is what was said. On Sunday morning, ESPN Adrian Wojnarowski reported to Harden is mulling heading back to Houston, where he played from 2012 to 2021, if he does not re-sign with the 76ers. Harden and his inner circle have been openly weighing Houston in recent months, sources said, a remarkable possibility, given that he requested and received a trade out of the franchise less than 2 years ago, per Woj. And then this was put up. I project the Rockets to have $59.3 million in cap space this summer, and that's without sacrificing any of their young core. That's more than enough to add James Harden, to have enough left over to add more talent around him, along with keeping all the kids. Interesting scenario. So James Harden could be looking at it as like, look, they have all the young talent in the world. I would be able to come in, be that vet, be that guy. And then on top of that, they would still have money to go get a couple other pieces to add to the young core, get some vets, get some experience come the playoff time. You need things like that. So they'd be able to take James Harden. They'd be able to still have salary to go do some. We know James Harden is willing to take off, some of his salary in order to allow teams to get pieces. He's already done it. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially primarily because he did just ask to leave 2 years ago, right? So maybe the grass isn't always greener, right? That could be something. I don't know, and maybe now he's looking at it as like, man, I left. Houston was really able to turn it around. They got all the draft picks, they got everything. Like, they have the money. Like, I could go there. They're already a good, young, promising team. As I get into my later years, these guys can come and step up and kind of help me maybe win a ring or two. But then again, it's just like, if you're Houston, do you want to do that, right? Because you got a bunch of just great young talent that you want to develop, that you want to kind of go through these trials and errors, right? Of just, having to fight for just winning games and getting that experience. And if you brought in a guy like James Harden, well, then it kind of makes things difficult, right? But here's another scenario that I just want to throw out there again. This is a Lakers channel. I'm not saying it would happen. But what this at least does is this opens the potential door for James Harden to go elsewhere. And so what if he went to the Lakers? Look, this is a move the Lakers would absolutely want to do. If he went to the Lakers, he would, because the big problem with James Harden, right, is playoff performance, right? And him being the guy to lead the charge into the playoffs. But if he had LeBron James and Anthony Davis, he could just kind of play off the ball if he wanted to. He could play alongside LeBron James. He's a much better shooter. He would be kind of like the perfect complement for like what the idea was with Russell Westbrook, right? Like, and the Lakers they wouldn't have much, like James Harden would have to take a significant haircut, right? Because the Lakers would have about $32 million, but they could potentially get to more, right? So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but James Harden would have to come in. He could be the sort of, 1A, 1B guy with Anthony Davis, right? So you'd have LeBron, Harden, and Anthony Davis you could still go and round out the roster, but you have James Harden and LeBron to kind of make up for if Anthony Davis misses time. If LeBron misses time, well, then you have James Harden who could run the show and he could go, carry the load while LeBron's out. You could run him and LeBron in sparing minutes. So you always have one of them on the court. Like it gives you the same idea that you had for Russell Westbrook. The only difference is that James Harden's fit would just be so much better. It would take so much pressure off of James Harden as well to try to go win a ring, because now James Harden doesn't have to be, the guy or the second guy like he does in Philly. Like if James Harden doesn't show up in the playoffs, the Philly's done, right? Like Embiid is incredible, but he needs more help, right? He needs help. He can't do it all by himself. Yes, Maxey is great. It could be a real scoring threat, but is he a guy that you can count on to be your second guy to lead the charge to a championship, right? But with the Lakers, you'd have Anthony Davis, you'd have LeBron James. Like James Harden could just be like the third guy come playoff time and take some of the pressure off. And that could really help. And look, he was willing to try it out in Brooklyn. He just didn't like the structure. He just didn't like that guys weren't being held accountable, right? He didn't like what was going on with the organization. So he's not against playing with guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and stuff like that, right? So it's not completely far-fetched to think like, well, I could go to the Lakers and we probably win a championship or two. And then even when LeBron leaves, I'd still have Anthony Davis. Me and Anthony Davis could be that big man, little man duo like Joel and me. And then we could go get other players, other pieces, or another star when LeBron leaves, because we'd have that salary. And now you're in a position to really, contend for several years. Like that could be a real option, because Philly doesn't really have much to upgrade, right? Because are you trading Maxey? Probably not. Not unless you get a Kevin Durant or something like that. But chances are you're going to want to keep them. So James Harden, he may be looking at Philly and going I don't know if I could win here. I go back to Houston. I'd probably be just as good. And, they'd have the young depth, but just as good because they'd have the money to go get other pieces, right? So I could probably build a team that's just as good. I have all this young talent to kind of carry the load, and then come playoff time, I don't know. I mean, if he's considering leaving Philly, then that means it's a possibility to go get him. And he's a free agent at the end of this season. And that's a guy that the Lakers are waiting for, right? They're waiting for a free agent to like a big name like a James Harden to maybe come to the Lakers. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Personally, look, this is a move the Lakers don't say no to, right? The Lakers aren't going to turn down the possibility of James Harden coming to the Lakers. They're just not, right? If James Harden wants to come to the Lakers, he's coming to the Lakers. LeBron ain't going to say no. Anthony Davis isn't going to say no. But I still kind of lean towards going the depth route, right? Because if you get James Harden, you kind of have the same problem, right? Like you're just so top heavy. Although James Harden, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis might be the best trio in the league, hands down. And they're probably enough if you get into the playoffs to win a championship. Imagine James Harden being your third guy in the playoffs. That's probably what's best for him, because he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to take the big shot. He doesn't, if he has a bad game, you could probably still win the game just because you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Where if he has a bad game, we already saw in Philly, then they lose that game. So that's something else as well, where I think if you're on the Lakers, you got LeBron to carry the workload. You got Anthony Davis. You can be the guy during the regular season along with Anthony Davis, and then come playoff time, kind of take a step back slightly. Let LeBron be LeBron. Let AD be AD. And you're just, you're playing off the ball. You're playing with the ball in spots, but, you could kind of just be the middleman, right? You could be the scorer. You could be the cutter. You could be James Harden. But you don't have the pressure of being the guy, right? You don't have the pressure of I have to be the best player night in and night out for us to win. And obviously Joel Embiid is the best player on Philly, right? But they need James Harden. James Harden has to be good if they're going to win anything. Where if you had James Harden, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, even if James Harden is just pedestrian, right? If he's just averaging 15 a game in the playoffs, right? You probably have enough to win, because he's going to have the good games. But even if he kind of becomes the James Harden we have seen throughout the playoffs, you still have enough to win with those guys, right? James Harden's not going to have the pressure to give you 30 a night to win games. So I definitely think it's a move that the Lakers would do if it's a possibility. I don't necessarily think it would happen or will happen, if I'm being honest, but it is an interest. It is worth at least a conversation because the Lakers are big game hunting. All the reports say they are big game hunting. The Lakers believe, Kyrie Irving or some big star might come in the offseason. And the only guys that there are Kyrie Irving and James Harden. Everyone else is just kind of role guys. So if the Lakers are to try to star chase, they're either going to have to do it through a trade, whether it's like DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, whomever, all the stars that have been linked to the Lakers for this point, and then, or sign somebody like James Harden and Kyrie Irving. I don't think it really happens because does James Harden really want to be like the third fiddle? I mean, maybe. There were questions about him being the third fiddle in Brooklyn, and he seemed okay with it, right? Like, you be the point guard, I'll be the shooting guard, the whole Kyrie conversation. And they were kind of off to the races and looking pretty good. They just never got to, like, really mature. So maybe he would be willing to do that. Maybe LeBron would, especially in year 21, at 39 years old, maybe he would let James Harden kind of take over a little bit more. That's a possibility. Probably not, but maybe he would because it's James Harden over Russ. Maybe he trusts James Harden's decision making a little more, and just James Harden's creative, being able to create and do more than Russell Westbrook can. That could be a real possibility. But I just is James Harden going to take the pay cut? Yes, he took a pay cut, but not that. I mean, he'd be taking probably a $20 million pay cut. That's quite a bit, but. Maybe it depends if he wants to win. Does he really want to win a championship? That might give him the best opportunity to win a championship. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and James Harden, you're probably winning. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Again, just like a little hypothetical. I wanted to have a discussion with you all and just kind of hear where you're at. Is James Harden a guy that you would, if the Lakers can get him in the offseason, go get him? Or are you kind of like, nah, like let's stick with the depth, let's do all that stuff? Or would you rather have like Kyrie Irving? Would you rather have Kyrie? Do you think Kyrie would be a better fit than James Harden would? I just think James Harden's probably more willing to take a back seat. And that's just me personally. I wouldn't be against it. Look, if the Lakers got James Harden in the offseason, like let's say the first day of the offseason, boom, James Harden signs with the Lakers, I'm not going to be like, no, like why did you do that? Like I'd be like, all right, cool, like we better win a championship, right? I mean, you got James Harden, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. You better win. But it's just a thought. Anyway, as always, again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down in the comment section below.